Hi beautiful ladies, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk to you about female competition and how to tell when another woman is using you and what to do about it. And this is just indirectly in reference to the Ice Spice and Cleotrapa drama. Just in a nutshell, Cleotrapa recently released a mini series on TikTok where she relayed her experience in working with Ice Spice. Ice Spice allegedly invited Cleo out to perform with her on tour, and she was allegedly promised that everything would be taken care of financially. All she had to do was show up. So Cleo agreed to this, and apparently when she got there, they treated Cleo poorly. They refused to carry her luggage and feed her. And so Cleo went to social media and put Ice on blast. Ice responded and said that, I was doing this out of the goodness of my heart and I don't understand what's going on, yada, yada, yada. From this situation, it's unfortunate, and, people have their own opinions as to the true motives and intentions of Ice. Some people have spoken about colorism, but it's important to note that neither party mentioned race or color. And I just want to highlight that because this is an exotical channel, and I know that some people will think that, oh, it's probably colorism. Maybe it is, and maybe it isn't. Just based on the information that both parties relayed, neither of them mentioned anything to do with color, and so we'll just leave it at that. But one thing that you need to know is that when you're in an industry like the entertainment industry, or you're just a woman who is navigating other industries where there's a lot of competition, like corporate, for example, there's always going to be competition, especially amongst women, okay? And especially if you are a good-looking woman, or you're super talented, or you're just really good at what you do, there's always going to be someone who is in competition with you, even if they're in competition by themselves. And there's always going to be someone that will try to use you for their own personal gain. And so you need to be able to identify this in order to protect yourself. Every single relationship that you enter into, unless you are volunteering with a charity, giving back to less fortunate, it needs to be mutually beneficial, okay? Do not allow people to siphon your image, your talent, your finances, your energy for their personal gain while you're left high and dry, because then you may end up feeling burnt and used the way that Cleo feels, okay? Some people have alluded to the point that apparently Ice Spice has a history of slandering Cleo, and that Ice Spice only invited Cleo onto tour so that she can gain access to Cleo's fan base and be able to boost her talent base that way. And apparently Cleo was privy to this. People had warned her and she knew about it, and yet still she decided to go on tour with Ice because she thought it was an opportunity. She thought that Ice was being nice to her, and she thought that it would be a good opportunity for her to build her brand as a new upcoming artist. And she also thought that, it's my friend, me and Ice are friends, like, she's doing this nice thing for me, yada, yada, yada. Regardless of what people's intentions are in this situation, you need to know again that very seldom will people ever do things for free if they're looking to benefit, especially in an industry where it's competition or where there's money or business involved. People will always put their interests first so that they can come out on top. Very seldom, especially if that person is still building. Ice Spice is a little bit more established than Cleo, but she's still considered a newer artist. And so she's still in that very lucrative stage of trying to build her brand and her image so that she can become a superstar, essentially. And so very seldom, again, will people do things unselfishly without looking to get some sort of gain or return. And one common tactic that people do in the music industry, especially with newer artists, is they steal their content or they use their presence for their own gain. And I'm not saying that this is what Ice was doing, but Drake apparently has been accused of doing things, stealing people's songs, like underground artist songs, and cutting them out of business deals after promising to deliver on certain things because they recognize like, oh, this song's pretty fire. Like no one's going to know about you because like no one knows you. Let me use this to my advantage. Younger Beyonce has been known to kind of gatekeep her surroundings so that she can look like a star. Like there was this other artist, like one of the original members named Farrah Franklin, who she sung better than Beyonce, she danced better than Beyonce, she had better stage presence, and the fans responded better to Farrah, like in the very early days of Destiny's Child. And so Matthew Knowles, the owner of Destiny's Child at the time, got rid of Farrah immediately so that Beyonce could remain the star. Even if you look at Taylor Swift, you don't really see Taylor Swift collaborating with other female artists. And if she does, it typically is someone who doesn't have the same genre of music as her so that there's no competition. It's like, okay, I'm being exposed to a new potential fan base, and the same is true for you, and let's put both of our talents together so that we can both grow. Which is also why you never really see like female rappers collaborate, because they're essentially fighting to retain the number one spot in the same industry. So unless like maybe they have like a different sound, or it's an opportunity for all parties to benefit if they collaborate together, they don't collaborate, which is why you're more likely to see beef between female rappers and male rappers too than you are to see collaboration. It just is what it is. It's competition. Women are more likely to be pitted against each other than men because people like the whole catty girl fight thing. They like the whole, oh, she's prettier, she's more talented. And this is a drama that sells. This is a drama that fans unfortunately flock to. They like that toxic energy. And so this is why it's done. And maybe the same thing is happening with Cleo and Ice. I wouldn't be surprised. The fact of the matter is, I truly believe that Ice had an intention to use Cleo to gain access to a new potential fan base so that she can broaden her reach and her influence. And it's evident that Cleo has access to a fan base that Ice obviously doesn't. And so that's why she was invited on tour. But Cleo did not do her due diligence in making sure that the relationship was truly mutual beneficial. And so, I mean, that's on Cleo. That's another strategy that some women will use, and just people in general, to try to keep tabs or one up the competition or even slow down the competition, is that they will kind of form fake alliances or present kind of like pseudo opportunities for you to make you think that they're your ally and that they're on your side. But then, like, there's not really any thought that's put into the logistics to clearly demonstrate that it is mutually beneficial. And then when you come out of the situation, a lot of times you'll realize that you were either shafted, or maybe you weren't shafted, but you didn't really get anything out of the situation. But then the person also kind of benefited. And the worst case scenario of this is when there's a fallout and you end up looking like the bad guy, even if that other person is truly the bad guy. I'm not saying that Ice or Cleo is right or wrong, but I mean, obviously, Cleo thought that she stood to gain from this relationship, and obviously she doesn't think that she did, which is why she went to social media and made such an emotional show of the situation. Like, we probably wouldn't have known about the situation if she had kept quiet, because Ice didn't speak about it until after everything blew up and went viral. So some signs that women are in competition with you is when they keep tabs on you, especially if you guys are not that close, or especially if you can kind of tell that that person has hater energy. So maybe they've kind of like thrown you under the bus in the past, or you were privy to them not having the best intentions toward you. Apparently, Cleo was warned about Ice allegedly like slandering her and talking negatively about her, which is also a foolish, like, why would you go on tour with someone who doesn't like you? If they are trying to keep tabs on you and kind of be like, oh, like they create like a fake situation, like, oh, like, what are you up to? You know, we should catch up for coffee sometime. But like, you know that that person is a hater, and like you've seen evidence of them being a hater, and then all of a sudden they want to catch up. They want to catch up not because they actually care, but because they want to keep tabs on you to see if you are still a threat or to see how they could potentially benefit from being friends with you. Another sign of that someone's in competition with you is when they copy you. Imitation is not flattery, and I'm not talking about like inspiration, like, you know what, I'm really trying to improve my style. I like how that girl puts herself together. Okay, let me try to incorporate some styles that she has worn. Let me, consider shopping from where she shops so that I can get better quality pieces, but it's a style that's suited towards my personal style. Like, that's very different from actual copying. Like, and especially if the person is like hot and cold with you, or like they're not that close to you, or like they never really want to acknowledge your strengths and like give you shout outs the way that everyone else does, but then all of a sudden they start dressing like you, they start presenting in meetings like you do, they start using words that you are typically known to use. That person is copying you, and they're clocking you because they're in competition with you, and they think that by emulating aspects of your persona, that they can use that against you to become better than you. I remember when I first graduated from undergrad and I got an internship overseas, one of my roommates who was in the same internship, she was kind of hot and cold with me. Like, there'd be times where like she'd be like, oh, I'm so glad that you and I got to meet, and I'm so glad that we're together, and you're such a great support for me, blah blah blah. But then like there'd be other times where she'd completely ignore me. But I noticed that like if I had on an outfit, she would go back and change. Like, one time we had someone kind of come to the company on like a casual Friday and give like a presentation of the country's history. And so they said, feel free to like dress casually. So as I was getting ready, I put on this cute denim dress. I'm downstairs, ready to go. We're waiting on our driver to come get us. And like, she looks at my outfit, goes upstairs and changes. She's like, look, we're matching. And I was like, yep. And then another time when a bunch of the partners took us out for dinner, and I had on like this black maxi dress, and she wore another dress and was like, oh, that's a cute outfit. 5 minutes later, she comes back in a similar dress, similar style. Like, oh, look at, we're matching and this looks so good. And I recognized that the girl was copying me because she thought that my style was good. Like, people would always say, wow, like, you know how to put your outfits together. You look so good and blah, blah, blah. And I guess she felt threatened by that, or maybe wasn't confident in herself and thought, okay, what better way to beat the competition than to try to one up them? So yeah, don't take copycats as a form of flattery. Take it as a form of, this person is competing with you. Another sign that someone is in competition with you is when they exclude you from things. So maybe you guys are kind of like in the same social circle, and everyone kind of invites everyone from that circle to other events. Maybe you guys are in the same small group at church, and it's not like it's like a little private, like this is just for my close friends type of thing, but they invited literally everyone but you. They are excluding you because they feel threatened by your presence, and because they are in competition with you. They see your strengths. Maybe you yourself don't see your own strengths, but they see your strengths and they see you as a threat. And so they say, you know what? I don't want the focus to be on how great this person is. I also don't want to feel intimidated by this person. So I'm just going to exclude you from the event altogether. Like, I remember when I went to this church, there was this one girl that had an issue with me for whatever reason. Like, we had never had any personal conversation, so I didn't really know her and she didn't really know me. And I was an introvert, still am, so I wasn't really like obnoxious or like, the problematic type of person to be up in people's face. But I remember like there was this Christmas party at the church, and we took photos in the photo booth, and I guess she got the photos first, and she tagged everyone in the photo except for me. And I'm just like, okay. And we were friends on Facebook too, so it's not like she didn't know who I was, and I didn't send the invite, she did. So obviously you knew me well enough to find me on Facebook and add me. You could have also tagged me in the photos. But she was being a hater. I know I look fly that day. Like, my hair was like in a blowout with like curls. I was wearing like this freakum dress, not a freakum dress, it was church, but like this cute like little black dress and like Valentino heels, and like I look fly, I look good, I look fit, and she didn't. So maybe she thought that by not tagging me in the photos, that would take away from how I looked, but it didn't. Another sign that someone is in competition with you is when they make passive aggressive comments, or kind of like they put like mean girl energy towards you, or like they have like negative body language. They're just doing this as a way to chip away at your confidence. Like instead of them being confident in their own abilities or maybe improving where they lack, they think that the best and easiest strategy is to just try to diminish yours. And so being passive aggressive, being mean for no reason, sometimes even being confrontational or just being negative and trying to discredit you is the easiest way for them to boost their own self-esteem. It's a very temporary solution. It's very short-lived. It doesn't last long, and they end up feeling worse than how they felt before because they're simply putting out negative energy and they're getting that back in return. So a way to combat competition is to always remember to form allies and not friendships. Now, there are some very, very rare cases where friendships are beneficial and meaningful, but unfortunately, in this day and age, that's increasingly not the case. So you should not actively try to pursue friendships with hopes that, you're going to get some sort of sisterhood and that there's girls out there who are going to have your back all the time. Unfortunately, especially in the Black community, regardless of your shade, there's always some sort of drama and disunity amongst Black women. This situation between Cleo and Ice, and honestly how they both handled this situation before everything took place, is an indication of that. Like there's always some drama because Black women across different shades have these internalized insecurities that they refuse to deal with. And so they deal with these situations in unhealthy ways by being catty and mean to other women. It's the cheapest, easiest way for them to, I guess, get some sort of relief for how they feel in the moment, but it is short-lived and it will not last long. So form allies to avoid any drama. I have a video where I speak about this in great length. And so that you remove the expectation, like, look, this person doesn't really owe me anything outside of what was promised, like the business transaction. You don't have this perspective of like, everyone is your sisterhood and we're all friends and kumbaya, because it simply just doesn't exist. And you will start to navigate spaces where you only form alliances where everything is mutually beneficial. And if it doesn't work out, well, you realize, okay, I guess, there's no further obligation for us to continue this, and you move on. There's no big emotional show about it, the way that you would get with friends betraying you, and you just move on from the situation. Another thing to do is to not allow people to get you out of character. So don't stoop to people's level by engaging in drama, even if that person didn't start the drama, like if they, like outwardly, but if they like behind the scenes did something to offend you and you thought, you know what, like I'm upset, like everyone needs to know about this person, I'm gonna expose them the way that Cleo did. Don't do that. You stand to look like a hater, especially if you're a darker skinned woman. There are people who will kind of try to spin the narrative the way that it's happening now and say, oh, you're just an ungrateful, angry Black woman and blah, blah, blah. Look at you. That's why we don't work with you dark women. Understand social dynamics. Understand how things are socialized in the space that you operate in and act accordingly. It may not be fair, but like things are not fair, but life still goes on and is going to continue to be unfair. So you need to know how to navigate these spaces so that you are protected and you come out on top. Cleo honestly should have just taken the L in silence and said, you know what, moving forward, I don't mess with this girl. She obviously doesn't have my best interest at heart. Peace. And just keep it moving. Keep putting out music because Cleo does have a lot of fans that like her and support her. Keep doing your thing, and that's it. You should also have healthy boundaries and stay away from people with a bad reputation. Again, I mentioned earlier in the video, apparently Ice Spice had a reputation for being messy, for slandering Cleo and other women who looked like her, allegedly. But apparently Cleo was privy to this and knew about it. I don't know if maybe Cleo thought like, oh, Ice is a bigger artist and, here's my chance. Whatever she said, like, doesn't apply because obviously she would reach out to me if she saw my talent, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they see your talent and that's true partially, but for the most part, they also see you as competition and want to use your image for their benefit. And so when you have boundaries, you are able to protect yourself from ill intentions. So an example of this would be like if a contract was drafted up, Cleo could have prevented any mishaps from happening. And for example, like they would outline, okay, this is what we're going to cover. This is what we're not going to cover. This is the services that we're going to render, like carrying your bags. We're also going to feed you, I don't know, 2 times out of 3 meals for the day. The third meal is on you, something like that. And if the other party didn't fulfill their obligations as outlined in a contract, then that would be a breach of contract and you can protect yourself by going the legal route. That's a boundary that you would have, and that it's easier to establish that boundary when you have allies over friendships and not assume like, oh, that's my friend, she's going to have my back. No, this is business and you're an ally, and I'm going to do things to protect myself first and foremost, especially when you have to end up taking a financial loss for something that you were not supposed to be responsible for in the first place. Okay? Let me know what you think about this situation down below in the comments. Have you dealt with female competition yourself? How did you deal with it? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.